You're not poor because you don't make enough money. You're poor because you don't understand the mathematics of staying poor. And until you fix that, no raise, no promotion, no lottery ticket is going to save you. I'm going to tell you how to build wealth on a small salary. Not someday, not when things get easier. Starting right now with exactly what you have. And I'm going to do it using principles that actually work. Not the garbage you see sold on the internet by people who've never built anything except a following. The first $100,000 is a complete nightmare to accumulate. That's the first thing you need to understand. It's brutal, it's slow, and it requires you to do things that will make you look strange to your friends. You'll walk places other people drive. You'll skip meals other people consider normal. You'll say no to things that seem harmless, and you'll do this for years while watching everyone around you live it up and wonder why you're being so weird. After you get to that first 100,000, everything changes. But here's the math nobody wants to hear. Not because you suddenly become smarter or luckier, but because compounding finally has enough material to work with. At 10% annual returns, that 100,000 becomes 672,000 in 20 years without you adding another dollar, and the machine starts running. Building it first, though, that's the miserable part. Most people never get there because they can't handle being miserable on purpose. Comfort now, that's what they need. They need to feel like they're winning now. They need to show progress now, so they buy things that make them feel successful, and they stay broke forever. The pain of discipline weighs ounces. The pain of regret weighs tons. So pick one. $100,000 sounds impossible on your salary. I know what you're thinking. You can barely save $100. Fine, start with 50. Start with 20. The amount doesn't matter yet. What matters is that you reverse the order of how you handle money. You're paying everyone else first. That's what you're doing wrong. Rent, car payment, credit cards, Netflix, food delivery, coffee, nonsense. And then, if there's anything left, maybe you save it. That's backwards. Pay yourself first, even if it's $10, even if it feels pointless, because wealth doesn't start with money, it starts with the habit. Every time you pay yourself first, you're training your brain to believe that your future matters, and that belief, repeated over months and years, creates the discipline that separates people who build wealth from people who stay stuck forever. Think about it this way. When you owe your landlord money and you don't pay, what happens? Eviction notices, calls, consequences you can't ignore. But when you owe your future self money, you let it slide like it doesn't matter, like there's no penalty for skipping it. That's the problem. There is a penalty. It just shows up 20 years later when you have nothing saved and no options left. Treat yourself like the most important bill you have, because nobody else is coming to build your wealth for you. Not your employer, not the government, not some lucky break that's going to fall out of the sky. Only you can make the transfer from barely surviving to actually thriving, and it starts with making that payment to yourself non-negotiable. Warren Buffett's partner lived in the same modest house for 70 years with no air conditioning. He watched his wealthy friends build bigger and fancier houses, and you know what he observed? They became less happy, not happier, while he quietly built a fortune that eventually reached $2 billion. Not because he earned more than everyone else, but because he understood something they didn't, which was that having a basic house really helps you, and having a really fancy house doesn't do you that much good. The man could have afforded any house he wanted, any car, any lifestyle, but he chose to underspend his income his entire life. While his rich friends kept upgrading and taking on bigger mortgages and more expensive maintenance and higher property taxes, he stayed put and let his money compound instead of bleeding it into things that made him less free. You think you need to upgrade. You think you deserve nicer things. You think you've earned the right to treat yourself, and that thinking is exactly why you'll stay broke. Rich people look poor. Poor people try to look rich, so don't fall for the trap. Every dollar you spend trying to look successful is a dollar that can't work for you, can't grow for you, can't buy you freedom later. The neighbor with the least luxury car and the designer clothes, they're not winning, they're performing, and that performance costs them their future every single month. If you're carrying credit card debt, you're paying 18% interest, so we need to talk about debt. You cannot get ahead paying 18%. It's mathematically impossible. You're trying to build wealth while someone else is extracting wealth from you. at a rate that compounds against you every single month. There are only 3 ways a smart person can go broke, which are liquor, ladies, and leverage. The first 2 are self-explanatory, and the third one is debt. You borrow money to buy things you don't need to impress people who don't care, and you lock yourself into years of payments that prevent you from ever building anything. I'll make an exception for a mortgage on a modest house, and that's it. Everything else, if you can't pay cash, you can't afford it. And before you complain that nobody can live that way anymore, understand this. You're right. Nobody can live that way and also maintain the lifestyle you think you deserve. So pick one, lifestyle now or freedom later, because you don't get both. Anytime anybody offers you anything with a big commission and a 200-page prospectus, don't buy it. And here's a rule that will save you from countless financial mistakes. You'll occasionally be wrong, but over a lifetime you'll be way ahead and you'll avoid a lot of misery. This applies to timeshares, whole life insurance, actively managed funds with high fees, anything that requires a salesperson to convince you it's a good idea. You think you have a money problem, but that's not the real problem. You have a clarity problem. You don't know where your money goes. It just vanishes. $6 here, $14 there, $57 at Target for what was supposed to be toothpaste. Track every dollar for 30 days, I don't care how you do it. App, spreadsheet, notebook, whatever. Just track it. When you see your spending in black and white, it forces accountability. And you stop pretending you're being responsible while door dashing 5 times a week. You stop lying to yourself about the coffee habit, the subscription services you forgot about, the convenience purchases that add up to hundreds every month. Awareness is power, and most people don't want awareness because awareness requires them to face uncomfortable truths. They'd rather stay confused and blame their salary, but you can't fix what you don't track, and you can't build wealth if you don't know where the leaks are. Once you start tracking, here's what happens. You realize you're not actually broke. You're just spending money on things that don't matter. And once you see it clearly, you can't unsee it. Every stupid purchase becomes obvious. Every waste becomes painful, and that pain is what finally creates change. Understanding both the power of compound interest and the difficulty of getting it is the heart and soul of understanding money. So now we need to talk about compounding. Most people have no idea how powerful this force is because they've never given it time to work. The first rule of compounding is simple, which is never interrupt it unnecessarily. When you pull money out of investments to buy something you want, you're not just spending that money, you're spending all the future growth that money would have created, and you're killing the compounding before it has a chance to become meaningful. Patience matters more than intelligence when it comes to building wealth, and this is why. The big money is not in the buying or the selling, it's in the waiting, and most people just can't stand to wait. If you didn't get the deferred gratification gene, you've got to work very hard to overcome that, because without it, you'll chase quick wins your entire life and end up with nothing. Look at Berkshire Hathaway, and if you took out their top 15 decisions, they'd have a pretty average record. It wasn't hyperactivity, it was patience, waiting for the right opportunities, then acting with conviction when they appeared. Slug it out 1 inch at a time, day by day, and at the end of 20 years, you'll have what you deserve. Most of you are doing the opposite, moving money around constantly, chasing trends, buying things because they went up, selling things because they went down. Every time you do this, you're paying fees, paying taxes, and interrupting the compounding, which means you're working against yourself. For most people, the right answer is simple, and here's what you should do instead. Index funds, low cost, diversified, boring. You put money in regularly and you leave it alone. You don't try to time the market. You don't try to pick individual stocks. You don't listen to people on social media telling you about the next big thing. Most people should not do anything other than have index funds. And here's why. It's perfectly rational for somebody who doesn't want to think about it constantly and has no reason to think they have any advantage as a stock picker. Why should they try to pick stocks when they don't design their own electric motors? So why would they try to design their own portfolio? Index funds are boring, though, and that's the problem. They don't make you feel smart. They don't give you stories to tell at parties. They don't create the dopamine hit of thinking you've discovered something others missed. So most people reject this advice and go chase excitement instead. Then they lose money and wonder what happened. The safest way to get what you want is to deserve what you want, not to chase it, not to force it, not to gamble on it, but to deserve it through patience, discipline, and steady accumulation over time. That's not sexy. It's not fast, but it works. You need to stop increasing your lifestyle every time your income goes up, and this is something nobody wants to hear. This is called lifestyle inflation, and it's the silent killer of wealth for millions of people. When you get a raise, what do? You upgrade your car, you move to a nicer apartment, you start eating out more, you buy better clothes, you convince yourself you've earned it, and suddenly your new higher income disappears just as fast as your old lower income did. You're making more and saving nothing. The correct move is to let your income rise while your expenses stay the same. And that's how the gap widens. That's how you create margin. That's how wealth actually gets built. It requires you to not care what other people think, though. It requires you to drive the same car when you could afford better, to live in the same place when you could afford bigger, to resist every urge to show the world that you're moving up. Someone will always be getting richer faster than you, and this is not a tragedy, it's just reality. If you spend your life comparing yourself to others and trying to keep up, you'll stay broke forever, because the race you're running is against your past self, not against your neighbor. Mozart was the most famous composer in the world, but utterly miserable most of his life. And one of the reasons was that he always overspent his income. If Mozart can't get by with that kind of behavior, you shouldn't try it either. Compare that to a federal judge who underspent his income his entire life because there were no pensions for widows back then, so he saved relentlessly to make sure his wife would be taken care of. When he died, she lived comfortably. One man chose discipline, one man chose impulse, one family ended up secure, one ended up broke, and the money they earned wasn't that different, but the behavior was everything. Most people think building wealth requires some special knowledge, some insider information, some lucky break. But here's what they get wrong. It doesn't require you to be brilliant. It requires you to avoid being stupid. Don't go into debt for things that don't produce income. Don't interrupt compounding. Don't try to get rich quick. Don't spend money to impress people who don't pay your bills. Don't invest in things you don't understand. Don't trust salespeople with big commissions. Don't compare yourself to others. Don't let lifestyle inflation destroy your progress. If you just avoid those mistakes, you'll end up ahead of 90% of people, not because you did something extraordinary, but because you didn't do the stupid things everyone else does. What separates people who actually build wealth from people who just talk about it is learning. Constant, relentless, never-ending learning. In my whole life, I have known no wise people over a broad subject matter area who didn't read all the time. None, zero. You'd be amazed how much successful people read. And I'm not talking about scrolling social media or watching entertainment, but reading books that expand their understanding of the world, of business, of human psychology, of history. There are answers worth billions of dollars in $30 books, but most people won't read them because reading requires effort and focus. Wisdom acquisition is a moral duty. It's not something you do just to advance in life. You do it because staying ignorant when knowledge is available is a choice, and it's a choice that keeps you poor. I constantly see people rise in life who are not the smartest, sometimes not even the most diligent, but they are learning machines. They go to bed every night a little wiser than they were when they got up, and that helps enormously, particularly when you have a long run ahead of you. You sell yourself an hour each day, and here's what you do. Before you do work for anyone else, you spend 1 hour making yourself more valuable, reading, learning, practicing a skill, studying something that increases what you're worth to the marketplace. Most people won't do this. They'll say they're too tired in the morning. They'll say they don't have time. They'll say they'll start next week, and next week never comes. Meanwhile, the people who actually do this pull further and further ahead, not because they're special, but because they showed up every single day when everyone else hit snooze. Your earning power is directly tied to your value in the marketplace, so if you want to earn more, become more valuable. Learn skills people will pay for, master communication, understand how to solve problems, get better at your craft, because the marketplace rewards competence, not wishes. Building a high-income skill takes time, though, and here's the part that makes most people uncomfortable. It takes months or years of consistent practice before it starts paying off, and most people quit long before they get there because they want results immediately. That's the same impatience that keeps them broke in every other area. They want compound interest without the waiting. They want skills without the practice. They want success without the struggle. And because they can't delay gratification, they stay stuck in the same place year after year. If you're willing to do what others won't for a few years, you'll be able to do what others can't for the rest of your life. And that's the trade. Short-term discomfort for long-term freedom. Most people won't make that trade, and that's why most people stay broke. Envy, resentment, revenge, and self-pity are disastrous modes of thought. So we need to talk about something that will make you uncomfortable. Self-pity gets pretty close to paranoia, and paranoia is one of the hardest things to reverse. So if you let these emotions control you, you'll sabotage every bit of progress you make. You see someone driving a nicer car, and you feel envious. You see someone taking expensive vacations, and you feel resentful. You compare your situation to theirs, and you feel like life is unfair, and all of that poison prevents you from doing what actually needs to be done. Stop worrying about what other people have. Stop comparing your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 20. Stop assuming that what you see on the surface represents reality. Half the people you're envying are drowning in debt, financing a lifestyle they can't afford to impress people who don't care. You know what the real flex is? Financial peace, not worrying about a $300 emergency, not needing to ask permission to take time off, owning your time instead of renting it to someone else hour by hour. That's freedom, and you don't get there by trying to look successful. You get there by quietly building when no one's watching. Stealth wealth is the art of being rich without making it anyone else's business. No logo clothes, no leased luxury cars, no Instagram posts about your success, just silent, steady accumulation. When no one expects you to have money, you don't feel pressure to spend it to prove it. The loudest people online talking about money are usually broke, and the quiet ones who never mention it, they're the ones with 7 figures compounding in index funds. They walk past you in the grocery store wearing $12 jeans, and you'd never know they're millionaires, and that's the point. Let the influencers have their filters and their fake lifestyles because you're building something real, something that lasts, something that gives you actual freedom instead of the appearance of success. You don't need a second full-time job, and here's the uncomfortable truth about side income. You don't need to grind yourself into dust working 80 hours a week. You need quiet income streams that work in the background while you sleep. Sell a digital product you create once. License stock photos. Freelance a few hours a week. Flip items from Facebook Marketplace. Write scripts for YouTube channels. None of this is glamorous. None of it will make you viral. But $200 a month invested wisely equals $47,000 in 10 years. And that's more than most people have in retirement savings. The key is sustainability. Loud hustle burns out. Quiet systems compound. You're not trying to replace your income overnight. You're trying to add layers that stack over time until your small salary has backup. Most people reject this because it doesn't sound exciting enough. They want the big win, the overnight success, the viral breakthrough, and while they're chasing that fantasy, they miss the simple opportunities right in front of them that could actually change their situation. You only have to get rich once, and this is the most important thing I can tell you about money. You don't have to climb this mountain 4 times, just once, but that one time requires you to stop sabotaging yourself. Set up a second bank account at a completely different bank with no debit card and no app on your phone, just a digital vault. Every time you get paid, automate a transfer, even if it's $25. And that money is now off limits, out of sight, out of mind, still there in 12 months. This is how people on small salaries accidentally save $1,500, $5,000, $10,000 over time. They don't rely on willpower. They remove the option to spend. We live in a world of easy access where one tap sends your savings vanishing into a $64 Amazon order. So you can't out-discipline dopamine. Don't even try. Outsmart it instead. Automate everything: savings transfers, retirement contributions, bill payments, investment deposits, because the less you rely on willpower, the more likely you win. You're not trying to become a full-time money manager, you're trying to become rich quietly. And automation works when you're tired, stressed, or distracted. Discipline is great, but automation is greater, because automation doesn't care how you feel. It just executes day after day, month after month, year after year. While everyone else is trying to stay motivated, your system is building wealth in the background, whether you think about it or not. Wealth is not built through one decision. And here's the final truth most people never accept. It's built through a series of small decisions made consistently over decades. Pay yourself first, track your spending, avoid debt, don't interrupt compounding, keep learning, control lifestyle inflation, build income streams, automate everything. None of these individually will make you rich next month, but all of them together, applied consistently for 10 or 20 years, will completely transform your financial life. You'll go from living paycheck to paycheck to having options, from anxious to calm, from dependent to free. The people who succeed aren't smarter than you, and they're not luckier. They just avoided stupidity longer. They didn't get distracted by shiny objects. They didn't give up when progress felt slow. They didn't compare themselves to people on social media. They just kept doing the boring things that work until those boring things created extraordinary results. You don't need a six-figure salary to build wealth. You need a six-figure strategy, and that strategy starts with deciding that your future matters more than your comfort today. It continues with small disciplined actions repeated so many times they become automatic, and it ends with freedom most people never experience because they were too impatient to build it. The choice is yours. You can keep doing what you've been doing and hope something changes, or you can accept that nothing changes until you change. Your salary isn't the problem, your behavior is, and behavior can be fixed starting right now. Stop waiting for the perfect time. Stop waiting for more money. Stop waiting for conditions to improve, and start with what you have where you are today. Pay yourself $50, track your spending for 1 week, cut one unnecessary subscription, read one book about money, automate one transfer. Small steps, boring steps, unglamorous steps, but steps that actually move you forward instead of keeping you stuck in the same place, complaining about your circumstances. You know what separates the people who build wealth from the people who don't? The people who build wealth did the work when they didn't feel like it. They saved when they wanted to spend. They learned when they wanted to relax. They delayed gratification when everyone around them was indulging, and 20 years later, they had freedom while everyone else was still trapped. That's the deal. Discipline now, or regret later, discomfort now, or desperation later, patience now, or poverty later. So pick one, because you're going to experience pain either way. The only question is whether it's the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Most people choose regret because discipline hurts today and regret hurts tomorrow. But here's what they don't understand. The pain of discipline fades, you get used to it, it becomes normal. But the pain of regret grows heavier every single year. At 65, looking back at a lifetime of wasted money and missed opportunities, the weight of that regret is crushing. So don't let that be you. Make the hard choice now while you still have time to build something. Every year you wait is a year of compound growth you'll never get back. It's another year closer to retirement with nothing saved. It's another year of paying interest instead of earning it. The difference between starting at 35 and starting at 45 isn't just 10 years. It's the difference between retiring comfortably and working until you physically can't anymore. Your friends who seem to have it all figured out, half of them are drowning in debt they'll never escape. The other half started making these decisions